Okay, guys, we are back. It's another reading from Cascadia, Volume 1. Today, we're still looking at Part 1, The Winter, and I'll be reading the second chapter thereof, third chapter in the novel, which is entitled Back to School. And this one is a longer format chapter that takes place with Jonathan Fulbright going back to high school after the winter break. He's just attended the huge party Bethfest 2 for the year-end, New Year's 2002, and now it's early January, and he's January 2003 in the new year, and he's back with the clique at the school, and he's going to meet some of the teachers there and many of his friends and have character interactions in that regard. This is an interesting chapter because in the previous chapter, we had seen the clique and Jonathan and his friends, his group of friends, in a less formal setting at Bethfest, and now we're going to see them in a more formal setting at the school at Ivory Porter High, which is the high school in Cedarbrook, where Fulbright lives in suburban Cascadia. And so the classes, he's going to attend some classes, and he's going to meet with various members of the clique, like I said, his teachers, and interact with them. So there's a lot of exposition in this chapter, a lot of character development, and character introductions. So this is really setting out the formal high school setting for really the rest of part one of the novel. So here we go, guys. Back to school. School began again on Monday, the 6th of January. It was the first day back, slow and snowed in, the calm before the storm, when classes really cranked up for the final run to grade 12's high school year-end. Ivory Porter in the winter was like a gray-hulled ship frozen in Arctic ice. The tall maple, cherry, and oak trees planted 20 years ago grew from soil plowed when St. Vincent was first made, but today the grounds were barren and skeletal. The herb garden by the football field and running track was dead, planter boxes barely covered in green plastic garbage bags, spring yams and gourds sown underground awaiting the warmth of spring. A solitary black crow circled overhead the half-empty parking lot. The school's tall metallic roof was lined with a foot of powder, accented against exposed patches of dull aluminum sheeting where the janitors had scraped off the ice. The well-tread footpaths at the front entrance were shoveled, but piles of compact snow still lined the pathways. Today was day one. I had photography, geography, history, and gym. This was my busy day, setting up the slack schedule for day two, infotech, English, writing, and a spare block. In photo class, we watched a documentary about Annie Leibovitz, the softest of all possible back-to-school measures. Alec Rippin showed me the digital photos and video he'd captured at Bethfest 2, and there were some pretty hilarious pictures of Paul Butler passed out with a blue bob-cut wig on, a psychedelic frame of Kendrick dancing with Willis Sabatier under the strobe light, an overexposed shot someone else had taken of Kimberly Dean and Elizabeth Pello modeling with their arms around Alec, a partially out-of-focus sequence of a shirtless Sean Wood wrestling with Ryan Allmayer, some blurry night shots of Xavier, Will, and Matt outside having a snowball fight, a crooked shot of Taylor Wright stumbling out late, having gotten lost in Wellington and apparently nearly frozen. There was a 30-second video clip of Emily Newman, Patricia Hill, and Nicole shotgunning beers, mainly spilling all over themselves, which must have happened later because I don't remember that at all. "Can you make me a copy of these?" I asked. "Yeah, if you pay me." "Okay," I said. "How much?" "I'll burn you a CD with all this shit for $30. I've got 20 on me now." "Let's see it," he said. I held out my wallet for him to inspect. He took a single $20 bill and folded it into his pocket. "You look like you were about to freak on this learner's permit, Jono." "You took my money. Can I have my wallet back?" Alec tossed it to me. Kimberly Dean was diligently watching the roll-in TV screen as Annie Leibovitz blathered about a picture she'd taken of George W. Bush's cabinet. Kimberly leaned over to us and made a hissing sound with a finger to her lips. Alec and I stared at her and then back at his digital camera. "Didn't you take some photos, Kim?" Alec asked her. She shrugged, actually making a forgiving face at us. "Anyway, fine," Rippin whispered to me. "I'll burn this shit for you tonight. You got infotech tomorrow, right?" "Done," I said, and leaned back to watch Annie Leibovitz pontificate about Arnold Schwarzenegger's ass. In geography, our teacher, Mrs. Graham, handed out the work package for the second unit: meteorology, geology, and cartography. I flipped through the photocopied pages, but my eyes were scanning across the room to the hawk-like, burgundy-haired Victoria Moore, wearing a green dress as always, and the diamond-studded Jessica Vanderbilt, in a broad-shouldered petticoat like she was a cast member of Heathers. Jessica was slouched back, chewing gum and sending text messages on her cell, and Victoria was glancing at me and making shapes with her lips. I narrowed my expression at her, and she rolled her eyes at me. I opened up to the first exercise and followed along as Mrs. Graham introduced us to the wonders of nephology. When the bell rang, 40 minutes later, I was yawning, and in a flash packed up my books and headed for the overbright plasteel hallway. Maneuvering through a thin lunch crowd, past Andrew Robinson, who was hitting on Amber Nightingale to her delight, I got to my locker, that tall, imperiously ocean-green manifestation of my unimpeachable senior status. The clique's lockers were strategically positioned on both sides of a long corridor beneath the physics labs, terminating in a fire escape door we had kept propped open in the spring. Not everyone in the clique was so lucky. Ryan Allmayer's locker was south in the art wing. Taylor Wright had his on the other side of the building in the mechanics shop with the burnouts, and Ken and Hamid had theirs by the gym. When I turned down the hall, I saw Rachel was already there at her locker, opposite mine, retrieving math textbooks. I tried to sneak up on her while her back was turned, but of course she saw me. I leaned in to give her a kiss instead. "How are the classes so far?" Rachel asked, brushing back hair freshly cut. I shrugged. "Yep," Rachel grinned, twisting as she reached into the back of her locker and withdrew a plastic bag of black licorice. "This place is like a ghost town." "Should have just stayed home," I agreed. Rachel offered me a licorice swirl, and I took one, stuffing it into my mouth and chewed it down in one gulp. She laughed. I swallowed and held up a finger because I wanted to ask her something. She took a bite from one of the licorice sticks and put the bag back into her locker. "What are you doing after class?" I coughed. "Work, unfortunately." "Oh, that sucks," I said. "God, I can't wait to quit. Are your parents going to let you? They promised they wouldn't stop me when school's finished." 5 more months, I said, counting off with my fingers. "I've got to go." Rachel looked at me with her deep blue eyes, math textbook in hand. "I promised Jessica I'd study with her." "What's the study?" I asked. "It's the first day back." "I know," Rachel sighed, "but Jessica's paranoid and I promised." "Non-stop excitement," I said, turning to my locker and reflexively completing the combination lock, pulling the thin steel door open. "I'll message you later," Whippy said hopefully as she closed her locker with a gentle movement. "We should do something on the weekend," I said. "Yes," Rachel agreed and went off down the hall, walking backwards so she was facing me. "Maybe a movie?" "Or just hang at my place," I offered. "Want to invite some people over?" "Your parents are back, right?" Rachel asked. I nodded solemnly. She made a phone sign with one hand, putting it to her ear as she turned around. "Later, Fulbright." I sent her an air kiss, and she almost bumped into Xavier. "Out of the way, Whippy!" Xavier yelled. He was wearing all black leather and a shirt with the neon marathon symbol on it, obscured by his jacket. Rachel stuck her tongue out at him and then disappeared around the corner. "What's the word, Fulbright?" "Dude," I said, collecting my history textbook from the locker as Xavier walked past me. Will turned the corner a second later and hustled down to his locker just to my left. "Spicer!" "Sup?" "Well?" "You interested in the Rippin' vids from Bethfest?" I stared at Xavier. No," Xavier said, "unless he has documentary evidence of me defeating Matt at Halo." "Can't document something that didn't happen," Will snarked at him. "You little fuck!" Xavier went to swat at Will. "Not like you did any better." Will looked at me like I was supposed to say something. "Speaking of which," said Xavier, patting me on the shoulder with an open hand, "I was watching some of these E-Bomb World soundboard vids." "Oh, yeah? You know, prank phone calls?" "Right. Remember when we used to do that shit?" 1-800-JENNY-CRAIG, I snickered. Famous weight gain program. "We should have recorded that, could have posted it on something awful and been internet famous by now." "Yeah," I said, looking from Xavier to Will with mock confusion. "Why didn't we?" "I don't live in the past," Spicer snorted. "So anyway," Xavier was impatiently rolling his eyes. "I'm done after lunch," I said. "Spare block then? I mean, it's gym, but I'm skipping." "Nice," said Xavier. "Games?" I asked. "For sure," Xavier licked his lips. "I want to play me some more Valhalla." "When are you done?" "I was going to skip drama and go home after lunch because I'm lazy, but now I have real motivation to skip that bullshit, so I'll message you when I'm there." He squeezed past me and opened his locker. Will was stowing some pre-law books. "You in for Valhalla?" Xavier shot Will a glance. "I don't know," Will said, eyebrows climbing at the prospect as he pushed his glasses up to the bridge of his nose. "Maybe." "What else you got?" Xavier asked in disbelief. "One more university application to finish, might watch hockey afterwards with the family. I'm used to Jono bailing out like a bitch, but not you, young William." "Just message me if you guys are playing." Will switched out his notebooks. "I'd be down for StarCraft." "Yeah, I can probably swing that later," I said. "Sure," Xavier was sighing. "All games all the time." He popped cinnamon gum from a blister pack and started chewing, but the motion was to conceal his other hand, withdrawing his thin copper cigarette case. Xavier pulled his black ski jacket tighter and closed the locker. "I'm going to the smoke pit," he said, zipping up the jacket, "to smoke weed and get high." "Don't let me stop you." He turned away and shuffled down to the fire exit, pushing it open with a heave, and the heavy door clicking open as cold air swirled into the hallway. "See you guys online." Xavier was already strolling off into the wintry air. The fire exit slammed closed behind him. "That guy is never going to college," Will sighed. I laughed, shaking my head. "Hey," I said, "do you want your Kang comics back? Did you finish reading them?" "No," I admitted. "I got bored." "I guess so then," said Will. "Next time, D&D? "Sure." Will was looking up at the ceiling like he did when he was thinking. "What is it?" I asked. "Week after next, I think." "We can do it this weekend," I said. "I was going to invite some people over anyway. Rachel's coming." "Can't." Will pouted his lips and shook his head. "Ken and Hamid already blocked that out. They're playing somewhere, McCovey or Shawcross, I think." "Man," I said, "literally high school rivalries." "I know." Will rolled his eyes. "Anyway, if you guys are hanging out, let me know. Maybe I'll come over." "Okay, cool," I said, turning back to my locker. "Wait, hold on a second, Jono," said Will. "What? Are you free right now for lunch?" "I can be." "Victoria's doing cards in the library. You should come." "All right, count me in." "Nicole?" "You haven't seen her?" Will asked, pointing to the locker at the far end of the hall, the one with the Wu-Tang Clan sticker on it. "Nope," I said. "I'll message her." Will reached into his pocket for his sleek Sony Ericsson P800. "This might not be too bad a year after all," I said, history book and note binder in hand as I closed the locker definitive. "Remember, see you at lunch." I nodded, spinning my combination lock, and strutted down the hallway towards history class. Once again, class was only half full when I got there. Mr. Campbell was wearing his usual white dress shirt, secured beneath a blue-on-white striped tie. Relaxed beige slacks hiked a little too high over his waist, feet enshrined in shiny black Oxford heels and checkered socks. He was writing on the whiteboard, back to the classroom. Beth was at the back, reading from some Warren novel. She gave me a little wave and gestured for me to join her. I nodded in a cool way. There were a dozen laminated tables spaced around the room, facing the teacher's desk, a cream EMAC computer, whiteboard forward, with the classroom windows to the left facing south. Overcast noonish light was reflecting off the gray snow outside. The glittering glass and steel visage of the St. Vincent skyline, all towering skyscraper office buildings just visible in the distance, enveloped by a low haze that drifted in off the waterfront. I got up and maneuvered down the rows of desks, sliding into the one green-backed plastic wireframe chair that was beside Beth at her solo-occupied rectangular table. "Great party, Beth," I said. "Really?" "Thanks, Jono," she said, leaning back in her chair as far as she could, flipping pages in the book she was reading. "And thank you for staying and cleaning up. Andrew Robinson and Sean Wood should have given a shit, given how much shit they spilled." "Hey," I smiled, "I do what I can." "At least you did." Elizabeth shook her head. "Did you hear from Hamid?" What happened to him?" I asked, thinking that he hadn't been at Alex's post-hot tub camera reel either. "He was gone when Rachel and I got up. He went with Taylor Wright. Maybe he rolled away at 4 and froze to death." "Oh, it took the car?" "Must have." Beth got out a felt-tip pen and tapped it against her lips. "If he's dead, it's his own fault for drinking my vodka." "Well, that wasn't just Hamid." "I know," Beth moaned. "It's mean. It's okay. Matt had some deal with Dad, but Ryan and Hamid were the worst." "Ryan?" I nodded. "And Xavier and Will and me." "Yeah, and Xavier drank all of my goddamn hard lemonades too, the lush." "Just the price of throwing a killer party," I said. "Well, I did make $20 when we recycled everything," she conceded. Beth dog-eared her novel and put it down on the table face up. It was Ringworld by Larry Niven. "Any good?" I gestured. "Well, I like the concepts," Beth explained. "Good inspiration for some of the stuff I'm drawing." "Like what?" She opened her notebook and flipped to a particular page where she'd sketched out a couple of characters. A big cat monster evolved from the Ivory Porter Panther, Dot Matrix from Reboot, and what looked like young Link from Ocarina of Time. "Well, those are good," I said, reaching across to Beth's pencil case and digging around until I located her calculator. I input 58008 and showed it to her. Beth looked down her nose at me. She flipped to another page in her sketchbook where there was a big Georgia O'Keeffe-style rose she was drawing. "Well, it's detailed," I said, getting horny. "I could draw one for Rachel, for you, for Valentine's maybe." "Well, that would be awesome," I said, genuinely grateful she'd reminded me. She'd love that. "No problem." Beth smiled at me. My eyes wandered around the classroom as people gradually filed in. Quarterback Sean Wood, a massive muscle and square jaw, buzz-cut hair like Buzz Aldrin or Johnny Unitas, went and sat over by the window, watching whatever was happening on the track field outside. Kimberly Dean, dope-smoking skeptic girl and senior president, strolled in wearing blue jeans and maroon wool sweater. She was followed closely by Charlotte Robinson, my teenage red-headed fantasy girl, her oval face glowing because she was laughing at something Taylor Wright was saying. Charlotte was wearing a loose-fitting cashmere zip-up track sweater and matching polyester pants. She sat down with Kim at the front. Taylor, who evidently hadn't frozen in the wilds of Wellington Heights, came in next, wearing his psychedelic, tie-dyed snowboard jacket and cargo pants. His chest was puffing, either from the jog from his locker or because he'd been smoking a straight J with Xavier McMillan and the Stoners. He took a seat at the table in front of me and Beth and turned around, dark eyes partially obscured by a loose strand of his red-brown hair. "Thanks for letting us crash at your place, Beth," he said. "Any time," she said, looking up from her drawing. "Did you get laid?" Taylor turned slowly away. "Well, that's a big yes." Beth raised her eyebrows as she went back to scribbling her notebook. "Best party, am I right?" I asked Taylor. "Yeah, man." "Wait until this summer," Beth whispered, her wrist moving with a flourish as she created rose leaves and ink. "Bethfest 3? The party never ends," Elizabeth Peel said with conviction. Jordan Middleton bounded in next, sweat running down his shaved head and dripping onto his black Nike t-shirt and blue jeans, followed by Nicholas Gardner, who looked like he'd come right off the chairlift at Moresby Mountain. Taylor was checking Ed Jessup, who had been sitting beside him on his left side the whole time, demurely organizing his magic card collection. Ed, with his thick glasses and last-generation slick-back haircut, hadn't been at Bethfest. "Why weren't you there?" Taylor asked him. "Why would I be?" Ed said, like it was obvious. Taylor shrugged. I looked at Beth. She didn't say anything, still drawing. I didn't want to go there, and thankfully Emily Newman strolled in from the hallway, unfurling her backpack and setting it down on top of a table in the middle of the class. She was wearing amber jogging pants and a light red sports jacket, the kind made from waterproof nylon and polyester. Emily gave Beth a wave, and her eyes crossed mine before darting away to Mr. Campbell and the whiteboard he was writing a long line on. I thought of that photo Alec had gotten of Emily drunkenly shotgunning with Nicole Jeffrey and Patricia Hill, those same photos showing the party spooling down to those two blitz to drive, music dead and rooms scattered with empty beer cans, people spreading out on blankets unconscious while Starship Troopers played on mute on the living room TV. The classroom wasn't getting much more occupied. Mr. Campbell finished what he was writing as he straightened his tie, checking his handiwork. I could see the years 1962 through to 2001 listed out vertically in rows so that the numbers almost completely covered the whiteboard. I opened my own borrowed textbook and flipped to the required chapter. The title was Background to Cascadian Independence. Mr. Campbell leaned over his desk and quickly took attendance on the EMAC, a short affair since half the class was missing. When he'd finished clicking off names, he walked back to the whiteboard, uncapping a red dry erase pen. "So let's review," he said, turning to face the class now, his futuristic black glasses held tight against his jughead by an incongruous sports band. He habitually touched his tie, pulling it straighter or adjusting the knot a little. Beth stopped drawing. The class was dead silent. Ed Jessup stacked his magic cards and slid them aside. Sean Wood rotated his broad neck and faced forward. Kimberly and Charlotte looked up from the chapter they were reading. Mr. Campbell surveyed the faces before him. "The idea here," he said, touching his tie, "is to think of a major event for each year. It doesn't have to be in the textbook, just something you guys think is important." "Well, I don't know anything." Sean Wood was on point. "I knew you'd say that, Mr. Wood," replied Mr. Campbell. "I'll give you a freebie first." He turned back to the whiteboard and started writing at the date 1970. In 1970, the Cascadian capital was moved to Olympia by Vera Kallenbach. He was reviewing the last chapter on Cascadian independence, which we'd read before the break. Mr. Campbell looked over his shoulder. "Easy, right?" He walked down the line and pointed his dry erase pen at the year 2001. "Mr. Wood?" "September 11 attacks," Sean said quickly. "Not so hard," Mr. Campbell wrote 9/11 in red beside the year. The dreaded numbers reminded me of the chaos 2 years ago. Everyone speculating, what were the Americans going to do? Nuke Kabul? What would Cascadia do? All too quickly, the news transformed, and I had to forget about Afghanistan and the Taliban and bin Laden and al-Qaeda because George W. Bush said Iraq and Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and were more important. Mr. Campbell was watching the class. He was actually looking at me. "Now," he said, turning back to the board, "I don't expect you guys to get them all, but let's just see how many we can get." He pointed to 1962 at the very beginning. Ed Jessup sighed, shuffling his cards like this exercise was simply too infantile. Kimberly Dean was talking quietly with Charlotte Robinson. I wanted to know what they were saying, but I couldn't hear. I knew I'd never get inside their heads, really. Maybe this is how it feels for Mr. Campbell, I wondered. Year after year, all these kids, and who really mattered? There would always be more teenagers. And as for me, Maybe Sean Wood was the senior quarterback, destined for scholarship money along with Ken Payton and probably Hamid Nasrallah, and maybe Kimberly Dean, who was perfect, smart, and the graduating class president. And maybe Charlotte Robinson was beautiful and lived in my dreams, but I was sitting beside Elizabeth Pellow, who was drawing her roses, doodling vagina flowers, Larry Niven at her fingertips, and everyone knew, maybe even Mr. Campbell could sense it, that Beth Pellow was the real power in the room, the princess with her knights. So I straightened up, tightening my muscles, studiously examining my textbook. So, Mr. Campbell continued, adjusting his headband, eyes briefly checking mine, or more likely Elizabeth's, for some reason, before he turned away, tapping his pen against the board. Who knows what pivotal geopolitical event happened when I was 2 years old? The Cuban Missile Crisis, Charlotte Robinson struck first. Good, said Mr. Campbell. Right you are, Miss Robinson. Charlotte beamed, her expression so fake even Beth rolled her brown eyes. Were you the guy who shot Kennedy? Sean Wood asked, suddenly interested. My parents built a backyard bomb shelter, Mr. Campbell continued, and I knew from the ancient way he said it that he'd told this story to countless senior classes before. Do you think he even remembers? Beth whispered at me. Does it matter? I asked. No, she sighed, detailing the edges of a petal. Mr. Campbell wrote down CMC. He pointed to 1969. Moon landing, I said compulsively. I was thinking about Neil Armstrong, his steely gaze from my wall, perpendicular to my roof posters of Pam, Christina, and Thora, and the countless neurons committed to virtual beauty that flittered through my mind in that moment. True, Mr. Campbell agreed. A crucial event, but not exactly Cascadian related, Mr. Fulbright. Is it Woodstock? Emily Newman guessed. Cascadian referendum, said Kimberly Dean, also guessing, but with some probability of success. Mr. Campbell's eyes darted between the girls. Woodstock and Apollo were key events in the summer of 1969, Mr. Campbell said. But Kimberly has the most relevant answer here. But on the final exams, Mr. Campbell repeated himself for the thousandth time, the most relevant political choice is the correct one. Kimberly actually turned around to glare at Emily, but Mr. Campbell immediately interjected. Is it too easy, Miss Dean, this multiple choice for you? Would you prefer something a little harder? Do a harder one, she suggested, rising to the challenge. Sean Wood booed. All right, Mr. Campbell stroked his chin one-handed. You might need to check your textbooks for this. He pointed the marker at 1995. I looked down at my textbook. There was a chronological list at the back, so I flipped that. Beth leaned over. There were murmurs around the class. What's the answer? Beth whispered at me. Here, I said, pointing to the year 1995. Say this. Beth put up her hand. Yes, Miss Pillow. Doris Russell won the national election, Beth read from my textbook. That's right, Mr. Campbell replied, waiting and not checking back. Do you know from which party? Beth looked blank, eyes darting over to me, but I couldn't help her. The Greens, huffed Ed Jessup from the corner of the room, eyes squeezed close like the answer was beyond obvious. Correct, Mr. Jessup, said Mr. Campbell. And would you mind putting away the magic cards just for now? Sean Wood laughed. Ed's eyes flashed open and he gritted his teeth. He'd been organizing his cards again, and he filed them into their plastic rectangular case. So, continued Mr. Campbell, why was this an important event? Doris Russell is the Chancellor of Cascadia, Charlotte Robinson answered primly. Currently on her second term, yes. Mr. Campbell stopped at the whiteboard to write DR at the years 1995 and 2000. Did you watch the debates, Mrs. Robinson? Charlotte shifted a little in her molded plastic chair but kept her back straight. My dad does sometimes, she answered. We'll talk more about this political and party history next month, Campbell explained, when the party primaries are taking place, which you should all most definitely watch. His eyes surveyed the room. Nicholas Gardner sighed. Taylor Wright put a handful of Tic Tacs into his mouth and chewed loudly. I was watching Emily Newman's hair, her shoulder-length black ponytail. She didn't seem like she was paying too much attention, the slight tilt of her head indicating she was looking out the window. Some birds flew by, little darts of shadow that curved into the cold sky and disappeared. Mr. Campbell zeroed in on her. Miss Newman, he said, do you agree that Doris Russell's re-election as Chancellor was the most important event in the year 2000? No, Emily answered snarkily. Charlotte Robinson didn't look impressed. And why is that? Mr. Campbell continued. Because the most important event in the year 2000 was the bombing of the USS Cole, Emily said, matter of fact. The room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Nicholas Gardner coughed. I wanted to know what Emily was talking about. A major event in the war on terror, agreed Mr. Campbell, addressing the class, carefully enunciating the last words, intoning them with sinister meaning. Mrs. Campbell wrote a very strong paper on Al-Qaeda for Term 1, he reminded everyone. Emily's cheeks were turning red, and to my surprise, she looked back briefly at Beth and me, and then whipped her head around when she noticed we were watching. Chancellor Russell, of course, agreed to support President George Bush and Prime Minister Jean Chrétien in their intervention in Afghanistan, Mr. Campbell said, turning back towards the board. A very significant turning point for Cascadian international relations and Cascadian independence. Campbell drew a forward slash beside the year 2000 and marked in coal, underlining it with a flourish. Let's do one more. He was tapping his indelible pen against the board, thinking to himself. This one is more difficult, but the answer, so far as the school board wants you to know, is in your book. He pointed at the year 1972. Kimberly leaned over to whisper to Charlotte, conferring together. I glanced over at Ed Jessup, who looked like he'd fallen asleep. Sean Wood was more engaged in the volleyball girls, Amber and Willow, who were practicing baton marching outside on the snow-covered yard in their tall socks. After a moment, Kimberly started speaking. George McGovern was elected President of the United States, she said. Yes, good, said Mr. Campbell, but let's try to stay focused on Cascadian history. Kimberly didn't say anything. Taylor did a quick back check at me to confirm I didn't know the answer either. Oh, Beth nudged like she was realizing something. I looked over at her, but she was doodling again, drawing a caricatured head of Bob Saget from Full House to go along with Elaine Bennis from Seinfeld. I snickered, and that got Mr. Campbell's attention. Yes, Mr. Fulbright, Campbell snapped. I stalled. I'd like to know more. What does your book say? He asked me, strolling along to the whiteboard, amused. I looked down at the timeline in my textbook. In the listing for the year 1972, there's a series of events. Something about the Vietnam War, anti-Confederation riots in Alberta, some clans forming. But there was one item in bold. August 1972 was when the Salish Treaty Annex of Cascadian Aboriginal Peoples Land Claims Agreement was signed, I read verbatim. Mr. Campbell smiled kindly at me. As Mr. Fulbright has just shown us, he said, surveying the class, I do suggest you all study the chronology at the back of your textbooks. It's an excellent resource for when you're studying for the final exam. I leaned back and crossed my arms. I'd answered his setup question, hadn't I? Does anyone know why this treaty was so significant? Ed Jessup was glaring at me. I must have startled him. As a rule, I tried to say as little as possible and let the Keeners figure out things for me, which they usually did. I narrowed my eyes in Ed's direction, but he just sighed, eyeglass gaze going downward like I'd expected. Sean Wood was paying attention now for some reason and had a neutral expression, like he'd already compartmentalized whatever was going to be said in this room. The corners of his lips were slightly upturned in a Mona Lisa smile. Taylor was checking out Emily Newman. The Salish Treaty Annex, that is, the STA, made possible the construction plan for the new Cascadian capital, Mr. Campbell was saying. St. Vincent? Taylor guessed. Why, yes, Mr. Wright. I'm glad you're so focused on the subject here. It's in Chapter 7, Kimberly bailed him out. Indeed, said Campbell. And I'm pleased you've read ahead. Can you tell us more, Miss Dean? Kimberly cleared her throat as she flipped through her notes. The Coast Salish people challenged the 1971 Cap Treaty in the Supreme Court, Kimberly read, and the court ruled against the Green Party. The government almost collapsed, and if Vera Kallenbach hadn't personally negotiated the Salish Treaty Annex, the Cascadian independence movement could have failed. Very good, said Mr. Campbell. However, he capped his pen in a definitive way. The whole class was watching him now. What's not in your textbook, he paused, his eyes big and bulbous behind his sophisticated glasses, glowing with an intensity that was so focused it was scary, is that the great Vera Kallenbach caused the crisis. Mr. Campbell made eye contact with each of us, and I nudged Beth so that she stopped drawing and looked up. The Greens were so greedy, Campbell lectured. They'd won the revolution after all, hadn't they? And they believed they'd win this case if it went to the court and council. Instead, they had to pay millions, hundreds of millions, as part of the reconciliation agreement. Payments that won't be complete until... He walked over to the window and looked out over at the St. Vincent skyline, towering and luminous like a mirage in the distance. 2023, he said, and this sounded like it was an unfathomable measure of time, like he was talking about the sun turning into a lump of coal. So, Mr. Campbell, turning around again and straightening his tie, when your technocrat, libertarian, voting, yuppie parents complain about their legacy taxes, just remember, their golden real estate and high-speed infrastructure wouldn't exist otherwise, or at the very least, it would belong to Uncle Sam. The class was quiet, as Mr. Campbell's jab echoed around the room, and then the bell rang because it was time for lunch. Mr. Campbell's heavy political lecture left me feeling lightheaded and hungry. I got to the lockers before anyone else and dropped off my books, actually running to the cafeteria to beat the line. The Ivory Porter cafeteria was on the first floor, beneath the science labs, but in front of the gymnasium. The main concourse was filled with rows of tables coated in fake marble plastic under long aluminum-paneled fluorescent lights. The near wall was a series of carbon fiber framed glass windows looking out over the snow-covered football field and the relay track. A side door, closed in the winter, led out to what was normally a grass field and garden. From here, you could see the sides of the single-floor Ivory Porter automotive and woodworking annexes to the south. I followed the rotisserie chicken and microwave sausage rolls aroma emanating from the cafeteria doors, and spotted Ryan Allmayer, denim jeans and jacket and all, already ahead of me in line, filling a transparent plastic cup with root beer from the soda machine and selecting a blueberry muffin off the rack. I picked up a pink plastic tray, hefting a greasy paper plate of pepperoni pizza onto it, sliding an upturned cardboard cup off its dispenser stack, and using the instant coffee machine to fill the recycled plastic cup with hot chocolate. Chocolate, man? Ryan snorted at me. What, it's cold out. That just means Irish coffee is required, he mumbled. First day back, I yawned. I want to quit already, Ryan agreed. One Miss Shepherd, who was supposedly a USV criminology grad, worked the cafeteria till and had a perpetually bored expression on her otherwise cute face, like she couldn't wait to have a smoke. We took our money for the fattening high school cafeteria food, like she knew we were going to buy this stuff, and Ryan angled for the table where Hamid and his younger brother Yusuf were talking with Ken Payton. I looked around the cafeteria. There were cute junior girls in oversized sweaters, bantam field hockey players, a bunch of Asian Pokemon card players I didn't know, and clusters of freshmen huddling together for protection from the seniors. Some guys like to lord it over the younglings. I remember when, in this very room a year before, Nick Gardner fought Paul Cosmatos to a standstill to stop him from dumping a garbage pail on Ed Jessup's head. Just another social strata that I knew was dissolving. Too fast for some. I felt like laughing. Hey guys, Ryan sat down on the bench opposite Hamid, sliding his tray onto the table and pushing aside what must have been Yusuf's dorky Power Rangers backpack. Hamid was wearing a fleur-de-lis patterned blue polo shirt and beige cargo pants. I sat down opposite Ryan and gulped hot chocolate. Gotta slow down, Jono! Ken was wearing the green and black striped St. Vincent Falcons basketball jersey with black shorts, having clearly just come from the gym. You're gonna do yourself in with that concentrated chocolate. Who wants to live forever? I pondered. Such angsty Gen X nihilism, Ken scowled. How about that Ray Kurzweil guy? Who? It doesn't matter. The point is, Jono, you should consider your health before you turn into a fat ass. Why are you so earnest all the time, Ken? What else should I be doing? Deceiving you? No, Ryan interjected, breaking chunks off his muffin and chewing loudly, crumbs falling from his thick lips. Peyton is a fucking perfect example. This generation has video games and shit to distract it. There's no point being cynical. It's the new millennium, Fulbright. A glorious future awaits. I hate to say it. Hamid was looking up from the paper his brother was working on, but Ryan's right. Exactly, Allmayer continued. There's nothing to be cynical about with the speed that we're sailing into the future here. Gen X rebellion gets you Kurt Cobain. Don't make the same mistake, Jono. Your mind makes it real? Well, Ken was talking to Ryan and Hamid now. I can't blame anyone. We're the first generation with the internet, right? Ryan and Fulbright here. I can't imagine growing up entirely watching TV or radio? Nothing? Was it different for you, Yusuf? What's wrong with TV? Hamid's scrawny younger brother shrugged. MTV, cable news, TNT, that kind of shit, right, Ken? Ryan finished his muffin and crumbled up a napkin. Right. Ken was watching over my shoulder, but I couldn't see at who because there was a green-painted steel support pillar in the way. Mind poison. Would you just numb down, please? Even D&D. Nobody played that except for turbo nerds. Compare those primitive experiences with BattleNet or Counter-Strike. Ryan held out his arm, palm open, and pointed to Ken. Peyton gets it, he said, but he's a huge fucking nerd. Ain't that right, Jono? What a hypocrite. Yep, I said, eating my pizza. See? Ryan shook his head accusatorily. Here's Jono playing some bullshit 2D arcade game in the 1980s, right? Like, not much different from your brain drain on cable TV, Ken. What was that shit Mrs. Abramovich was talking about? Wasn't it alpha waves? Ken chuckled. Ryan kept going. Like you're zoned out. People on mescaline in the study were more responsive. Jono, total zombie generations. Ryan made a gun with his fingers and pointed it to his head. The internet is the first time ever where you're never not going to be bombarded with information and being recorded. Here, I'll take out video of this on my phone right now. Hamid, stroking his chin, leaned back while Ryan got out his camera phone to film us for a few seconds. I'll get my real cam later and document this further. You can't film this. Hamid put his hands up to block the cell's MPEG video cam. Hamid's mustache wasn't cut too tight today. Maybe he'd be up for playing Valhalla, I thought. I rest my case, Ryan concluded, stowing his Nokia 610. Yusuf stopped scrolling on his notepaper, retrieved his backpack from where Ryan had pushed it, and reached inside to produce a saran-wrapped sandwich, multigrain bread, maybe tuna fish. I drank down the rest of my chocolate. Anyway, Ken was looking around the cafeteria, spying drama star Amber Nightingale and the raven-haired Emily Linlithlingow, who had just come in from volleyball practice and were sitting together by the windows with Willa Sabatier, the Goldfish girls holding court, of course, and Peyton was side-eye ogling them, which was easy. My point here is that Jono is going to turn into a fucking pumpkin if he keeps eating and drinking that shit, and no amount of cynical nihilism is going to protect his ego when his metabolism grounds to a halt and he bloats up like Baron Harkonnen. It's pepperoni pizza and hot chocolate, man, I said defensively. What are you, a doctor now? Ryan glared at me and Ken. Hey, I pay extremely close to my dietary and nutritional requirements, Almayer. Ken didn't skip a beat. In case you hadn't noticed. He flexed a bicep. Let's see. Ryan put his elbow on the table, fist open. Ken sighed. Must we engage in this penis measuring contest? You want me to get Willow over here and do it for you? Hamid chuckled, and so did I. Ken, as though the very need to demonstrate his superiority bored him, put a thoroughly muscled arm on the tabletop, opening and closing his grip. I don't know what you're trying to prove. Just that you're full of shit. Ryan manfully grabbed Kendrick's open palm. Okay, go, said Hamid, judging. Ryan's grip at first seemed to falter under Ken's instantaneous pressure, but then Almayer's needle strength and vice-like grapple overpowered him, and Ken's fist went down first. Happy? Ken wasn't smiling. I let you win. Bullshit, Ryan rubbed his bicep, but good game. GG, Kendrick said. I didn't even want to do it. I finished eating my pizza, but not the crust. Aren't you hungry, Ken? Drank a high-protein banana shake earlier, Jono, he was saying, but looking across the room as jacket and cargo pants clad 3 Mockingjay Taylor Wright came in with snowboarder Delia Monk and caught the end of the food line. They noticed Ken and waved. His mouth moved, telegraphing the question, talk to me later. Taylor was paying at the till. Delia shrugged. Ken screwed up his lips like a fish and pouted at her. Fulbright, Hamid put an elbow on the table. What, you want me to wrestle you too, dude? I want to get your opinion on this thing. Bangkok, Ryan nodded at Yusuf. What are you guys working on anyway? We're planning out the financing for the summer car. Hamid matched eyes with each of us, pointing to the mechanical, pencil-lead covered paper Yusuf had been making meticulous notes on. He was selectively taking bites from a tuna mayonnaise sandwich as he wrote. Care to elaborate? What are you guys going to buy? I asked Hamid, but he was watching Ken watching the girls. The younger Nasrallah, thin hairs on his chin beard, but with the same thick eyebrows as Hamid, examined his notes. He tapped the paper one-handed with his pencil. Mercedes, he said, chewing. Ryan snorted. You guys hoping to pick up chicks with that? He turned to face Ken. And you're just going to telepathically convince one of those junior girls sitting over there to sleep with you? Almayer, Hamid was annoyed. Why do you fight with everyone? You guys should be paying me for my valuable input. Ryan crossed his arms. Well, invoice me. Ryan cracked open a root beer and took a long, gurgling pull. This is going to be a used Mercedes, right? I wondered. Yep, Hamid confirmed, reaching into Yusuf's bag and finding a grapefruit-sized Californian orange, which he started to unpeel. If I had 40 grand, I wouldn't need student loans or a sports scholarship, Jono. How much do you have to play with? I was interested in the car situation, but just then I felt my phone vibrate, so I reached down, and when I checked the message, it was from Spicer, waiting for me in the library. Oh, shit! I reminded myself and started to get up. In a hurry, Fulbright? I gotta meet Will in the library. Card games with V-More. I was in a rush. Hamid winked at me, the grin on his face not revealing his true motivations. What are we doing after this clown show anyway? Ryan wanted to know. Practice is tomorrow, Ken said, talking to Hamid. Right. Let's just pretend like we're still on vacation. I thought Coach Jameson would have you guys sweating already, Ryan was saying. Soon enough, Ken chuckled. When's your next game? I asked as I was getting up to leave. Ken made a dumb face like he wasn't sure but thought he should know. It's on the weekend, Sunday. Who was it again? Shawcross Secondary. Hamid's eyebrows went up. Ken was calculating now. That'll be a cakewalk. Yeah, probably. Is Will doing D&D this week? Ken asked me. No, he said you blocked it out, I answered, intending to grill Will about this in a few minutes. I'll just ask him again. It's your house, dude, Ken reminded me. Yeah, but he's got the books, I shrugged, picking up my lunch tray. I'll message you. Nerds, said Ryan. I have a diverse range of interests, Almayer, Ken scowled, including, notably, being a bitch. This conversation is less enlightening than Spicer's nerd game. Yeah, fuck your mom, Ryan laughed at him. I saw Sean Wood walking into the cafeteria with Andrew Robinson. They honed in on Ken and Hamid like they were guided by radar. Valhalla later? I asked. Sure, said Ryan. I glanced up at Hamid, who just gave me a thumbs up. Video games? Scorned Ken. Who's the nerd now, Ryan? Shut up, Peyton, Ryan said under his breath, but Ken was laughing so much his orthodontized teeth were reflecting. Andrew sat down beside Ken, Sean clearing space next to Hamid as I was turning to go. Andrew shook his head at me, less in disgust than in utter disinterest. You get that Nasrallah mobile financed yet? Sean was talking to Hamid, clueless. Porsche, right? I thought you guys should buy a four-door Land Rover. As usual, I watched Ken and Hamid and Ryan, who was actually on the wrestling team, put up with Sean and Andrew's crap ideas. Screw him, I thought. I'm going to go play cards with Victoria Moore. I dumped my litter in the garbage bin and left the tray on its discard pile. Instead of heading for the library up the stairs, I walked over to the cafeteria doors and pushed them open to the outside, bracing myself as cold winter air rushed into the overpressure room, backlit New Age stadium lighting dissolving before me as I stepped into the gray of the swept and salted concrete pathway that interconnected the various annexes of Ivory Porter High, like a Roman highway. The cafeteria doors closed behind me ominously. I wasn't actually dressed for being outside since I left my jacket in the locker and I was only wearing my Deus Ex t-shirt and a pair of brown slacks, but I was wearing my lace-up leather hiking boots, so I started walking around the Ivory Porter building and towards the parking lot. I looked down at the football field, surrounded by its brick-colored oval track loop. Catherine Tizard and no less than Patricia Hill were down there running laps. Both athletic girls were wearing toques, sports jackets, and shorts, their bare legs pumping and breath curdling as they ran. I was surprised Emily Newman hadn't joined them, thinking back to history class and the way she looked at me, just for that moment, like I was supposed to say something. How strange. I walked away from the track and Planter's Garden and onto the sparse parking lot, only a few of the teachers' cars there, and then looped around to the building's side entrance beneath the library. Hands out of my pockets, I opened the first of two double doors leading to the main floor concourse. The pressure changed like I was going through an airlock. I crawled past a group of sophomore boys chatting about Half-Life with Peter Cosmatos, and then darted into the emergency staircase that back-cut up to the second floor. As expected, there was the cluster of lizard-like rebel freshman girls, half a dozen future leaders in the clique, but for now gender-segregated and hiding from the terrifying testosterone-driven mass of boys crowding the lunch halls. Rachel's younger sister Christine was there, wearing a John Travolta leather jacket and pre-ripped jeans, her back propped against the wall, exposed knees pulled up almost to her chin, watching over the shoulder as Vanessa Peyton, Ken's little sister, who was wearing snowboard pants and a plaid polo shirt that might have been her dad's. She was playing Pokemon on her Game Boy. I recognized some of the other girls but couldn't remember their names. Hey, Christine, I said, ruffling her long blonde hair as I gallivanted past. Thanks for that, Jono, she said, giving me a thin smile, distractedly batting me away. Keep studying hard, guys, I encouraged, turning as I climbed the stairs past them. Vanessa grunted, not taking her brown eyes off the illuminated screen of her handheld. I'll see you later, Whippy, I said to Christine. Say hi to Rachel for me. Dad wants me to get a job, Christine muttered, like it was something she thought I'd want to know. Yeah, I shrugged. They'll do that. I don't want to, though, Christine complained. Just ignore your dad, advised one of the girls I didn't know. She had dark strawberry hair and braces. Join me, Vanessa was talking to Christine. Not the ice cream shop, Christine was aghast. It's the middle of winter, Vanessa looked up from her Game Boy for a second. How busy do you think it is? I heard they make you work for training wage, Christine said. Another girl with glasses was staring at her like she was stupid. At least I'm making money. You're just jealous, Christine. And you're just ugly, Vanessa. I was still walking up the stairs towards the second floor hallway and the library entrance as the conversation trailed off. He's cute, said another girl just at the edge of earshot. Gross, I heard Christine mutter. I don't know what Rachel was thinking. At least you don't have to deal with Willis Abadier, Vanessa Peyton's laugh echoed from the staircase as I headed down the hallway towards the library. I walked past the glass windows overlooking the snow-covered southern Ivory Porter Annex and the track field and parkland below that. The janitorial staff were shoveling snow off the roof because I could see heaps of it falling onto the ground, plumes of the dry ice whisking past the immense library windows with each shovel. My eyes wandered across the afternoon light, looking out past the evergreen trees of Cedarbrook and down to the white-out condominiums at McKinder, and beyond to the towering St. Vincent Core skyline, shrouded in fog against rolling grey clouds. Michelle Chen, the grade 11 rep, was standing at the window watching too. "Hey, Michelle," I said. She was a year younger than me, but we were in the same mixed-term infotech class. Michelle was wearing her glasses and a light brown long-sleeve top and black knee-high length skirt. "It's cold out there," she said, pressing an open palm against the glass. "Yeah," I agreed, watching as a seaplane zipped overhead, flying into the clouds. "Did you have a good break, Jonathan?" Michelle asked me absent-mindedly. "It was baller." I smiled at her. But I was late, so I left Michelle to study the view and walked through the open library doors. Victoria Moore already had the cribbage board set up. She was occupying one of the 8 bamboo-framed and pillow-cushioned chairs that surrounded the first of 2 low rectangular wooden tables located adjacent to the librarian's office windows. Soft post-noon light shone in through the library's skylights, momentary shafts flickering as the sun cut through the cotton ball clouds hovering above St. Vincent like a city destroyer from ID4. Victoria's auburn bangs were hanging down, curled in front of her ears, her usual glass dolphin earrings jingling against her neck, the symbol of the counter-clique I knew, boycotting the monopolistic goldfishers, Kimberly Dean, Charlotte Robinson, Jessica Vanderbilt, countless cheerleaders and rich girls, and their minions. She was wearing a green sweater over her emerald dress, thigh-high socks keeping her legs warm. Nicole was leaning back across from Victoria, typing out a message on her cell. She looked dour in her trademark black jeans and black long-sleeve blouse, short hair even darker than it had been on New Year's, teeth obscured by her braces. Nicole's silver and pearl dolphin necklace hung around her neck. Will Spicer, who had been watching me talking to Michelle through the library windows, glanced up at me. "I was about to message you," he said, putting away his cell. "You're late, Fulbright," Victoria observed. "You can pay me later for the compromising Bethfest photos, Victoria." Vmore raised an eyebrow. "Shut up, Jonathan!" Nicole was annoyed. "Let's fucking play!" "Crib?" I asked. "What's it look like?" Nicole almost shouted, but remembered it was the library. She turned to Will. "Didn't you tell him?" Will blew out a long, empty breath. I sat down beside Nicole, ready to game. "Nicole and Jonathan will be red," said Victoria. "Will and I will play blue." "Fine." Nicole crossed her arms but couldn't complain. "I randomized it again, Nicole." Victoria watched her with her hazel eyes. "Hey, Spicer," I asked, breaking the tension. "Yeah." Ken and Hamid were wondering when we're actually doing D&D. "I also want to know the answer to that." Nicole glared at me before looking back over at Will. He shifted a little, glancing back in his chair. "Next weekend," Will promised as Victoria picked up her stolen casino cards and started shuffling. Nicole was studying me. "Do we even bother to ask if you remember what we talked about at Bethfest, Jonathan?" Oh yeah, I'd already forgotten whatever Nicole told me in the pool at Beth. "Skiing, Fulbright, remember?" "No," I admitted, "but I still want to go." "We're going up on the 18th, Nicole said definitively. "Saturday." "Roger that," I said, turning to Will. "I think those guys said they were playing a game on Sunday, so no D&D then, I guess." "Well, there's your answer, Fulbright," Will sighed at me. "You solved your own problem." "Yes," I said. "Can you message the group?" He nodded, yawning as Victoria shuffled. I remembered I had gym class next and was going home anyway. "Never mind," I said. "I'll do it when I get back after this." "Thought you were playing Valhalla with Macmillan." "Multitasking." "Valhalla going down?" Nicole asked. "I have a spare after this, too." "Well, if you ask nicely, maybe we'll invite you, Nicole." "Fuck that, Fulbright. You'll invite me because I said so." I rolled my eyes. "We're not going to have time to finish this game, are we?" "If you hadn't taken so long getting here, have any scary dreams, Fulbright?" Nicole, who knew about my nightmares because I told her on MSN, was needling me. Now, children," Victoria whispered, her hazel eyes gazing out from behind avocado-shaped Farsight glasses, surveying the players. She cut and fanned the deck, shuffling it with a convincing whip crack, and then started throwing the Huntsville casino cards at us, 5 each. An hour later, I was at home, at the computer in my bedroom. The thermostat was on high, and the windows had fogged up against a rapidly darkening winter afternoon. I reached for my backpack and unzipped it, pulling out my iBook Snow and clearing space on the desk by pushing aside a stack of magazines. Wired on top of one of Dad's old National Geographic editions from 1967. Beside the magazines was the silver and multi-flag emblazoned cover of the 600-page Rainbow Six paperback I'd started reading in 1999 but never finished. I set down the laptop and clicked it open, plugging in the router's Ethernet cable like plastic syrup into the snow clamshell. Mozilla booted up, and I watched as my default websites loaded. NHL.com, the Blizzard server statistics, Pelu forum, eMule downloads, last.fm, maddox.xmission, and an active white and blue HTML page of hundreds of links to monthly Playboy magazines that Nicole had created. I glanced at the NHL statistics as the Mozilla page on the laptop finished loading. Matt's forum was open, so I scrolled through it to the Valhalla server because it was starting up on the Dell. I'd shut down SimCity 3000 since I was going to be hosting and needed every ounce of RAM to run Zenith Systems' massively multiplayer Viking game. I was wearing my wraparound headphones with wire-attached microphone as I scrolled through Pello Forum on the laptop, listening to Disturbed's Liberate. I hadn't seen Matt today, which highly implied he was skipping physics for some nefarious purpose, very possibly to play GameCube by the looks of the Wind Waker review he'd posted a few hours ago. I wasn't interested in that, so I skipped over to the tabletop game section, where Will liked to post tidbits. The TeamSpeak server on the desktop bleeped as someone came online. "McMillan?" I guessed, speaking into the microphone. "Guess again, Jono," said the disappointed voice of Nicole Jeffrey, crackling over the VoIP server. "Oh no," I exclaimed. "You know," Nicole cut me off, "we would have won that crib game if you'd been there earlier." "Yeah, I'm crushed about that," I said. "Will you ever forgive me?" "Nope," she huffed. "So what are you doing anyway?" "I'm reading Will's post on Pello Forum about why Mordheim is, quote, the best." "I saw that," Nicole coughed. "Sounds like he's taking D&D to the advanced D&D level." "Do you ever play Mordheim?" "I don't play anything Gavin Thorpe has touched. Only Blood Bowl and Necromunda." "Oh." I could visualize Nicole smiling, despite her earlier annoyance at the crib game, as she talked into the computer microphone in her mom's office. The noise in the background sounded like dogs shuffling around. "John?" "Yeah." "Are you listening?" "Yes, Nicole. What's up?" "We started watching Roman Polanski's Macbeth today in English class, and I'm scared." "Sure you are," I said. "He's like a massive pedophile," Nicole informed me. "Who, Macbeth or Polanski?" Didn't know that," I said, not really paying attention, which Nicole noticed from my vocal inflection. "Look," she said, leveling. "I'm sorry I said anything about your night terrors." "Just forget it," I said, pausing, closing the laptop and rotating back over to the Valhalla lobby on the Dell. "Are you okay?" she asked, genuinely concerned, it sounded like to me. "I'll tell you if they get worse," I said. "I had the weirdest dream on New Year's." "What about?" I was about to attempt an explanation when the VoIP server clicked as someone else came online. "Well, howdy there, little girlies," said the preppy voice of Julia Sunderland, not who I'd expected at all. "Whoa, sup, Sun Money?" Nicole hadn't expected her either. "I am dying of boredom," Julia complained, her voice echoing like it was far away. "I'm surprised they let you use computers at Catholic school," Nicole teased her. "Me too," Julia shifted gears. "Is Jono there? It says he's online." "I am here," I said. "So they do let you on the computer." "Hey, Fulbright," Julia cooed. "I'm actually on my roommate's computer. Better for gaming." "Did nobody have a full day today?" Nicole demanded to know. "Are you kidding? I just told him I was going to study, which was essentially true until right now," Julia sighed. "Dad thinks these religious idiots are going to reform me or something. I mean, could he be more delusional? Obviously, they're failing to reform you if you're playing Valhalla." "So how's public school going, dorks?" Julia shut down Nicole. "It's going," I said. "The usual?" "Yeah," Nicole agreed. "Still a total waste of time, but whatever, we're on the final countdown." "Hell yes," Julia's voice spiked. "The end is nigh, fellow plebs." "Need more plebes," I intoned robotically. "Construct additional pylons," Nicole mimicked. Julia cackled on the other end of the VoIP connection. My clock beeped 4 o'clock. "So what'd I miss?" she asked. "Nicole was just telling me about English class," I said. "Whoa, too much excitement there, Fulbright." "We're watching a movie," Nicole explained. "Macbeth. It's super low effort." "You're lucky they don't censor your movies," Julia said helpfully. "Here, anything rated above PG-13 is considered sinful. They won't show them." "Jesus," said Nicole. "And don't say the Lord's name in vain," Julia implored. "It is turbo boring, but at least in the residence I can play games. My roomie's name is Sparrow, by the way. She's really cool, and she even brought her PlayStation, so all we do now is play Capcom versus SNK. Julia was rambling. Imagine what her Catholic-ass teachers would say about playing a Japanese fighting game, not to mention the pagan Viking game, Nicole puffed air. "Well," Julia remained unfazed, "Valhalla is like the best game ever, don't you think? I thought Oni and Resident Evil were the greatest for years." "I love it," Nicole moaned. Speaking of which, I paused for effect. You guys want to do this? Yes, dummy. Wait for Xavier. Nicole was distracted. He messaged, he's coming online. Oh, McMillan? Julia lowered her voice titillatingly. So he'll be here at some indeterminate time between now and the big crunch. I mean, Armageddon. Whatever. He said he was skipping drama for this. I answered and alt-tabbed out to check the MSN clique chat. Xavier's icon was active. So was Hamid's, actually. Wait a second, I said. Hamid is showing up on MSN, too. Add me to that group, Julia demanded. You don't even use Messenger. Add me anyway, Julia repeated the order. I'll make a profile. I hate missing out. You won't make a profile. I could imagine Nicole shaking her hair. Probably not, Julia admitted. But I bet I can get one for Sparrow. The VoIP throw beeped twice in succession. 2 more players going online. Hey, said the cheerful voice of Xavier McMillan. Did I just hear someone else going in? Yo, Hamid answered. Just got online. Whoa, Julia squealed. What a crowd. Sunderland, crazy, Xavier said. Julia, Hamid. Love you all, said Julia. Did you guys settle the car issue? Of course not, Fulbright, Hamid said. And don't worry, I'm not spending money on an Andrew Robinson or Sean Wood vehicle either. Yeah, my mind is at ease, I said. Who's hosting this one? Fulbright, Nicole said. You're on point, Jono. I alt-tabbed back to the Valhalla server and opened a new game. Game's up right now, I said. Cool your tits. I left on all the default settings and typed in a clever password. The password is penis. Julia and Xavier snickered. Hamid and Nicole were probably rolling their eyes. The game filled up, names appearing in a rush. Excalibur, Xavier McMillan. Sun Money, Julia Sunderland. Leet Power, Hamid Nasrallah. The Ghostface Killer, Nicole Jeffrey. My name on MSN in most games was usually Jono Vision, but on Valhalla it was G.F. Freeman, because some asshole had already stolen my usual name. Did you guys add the Battle Hammer after the 1.5 patch? Xavier wondered. Negative, Nicole answered. Can't beat the speed on the Gladius. Plus, 2-headed spec equals no shield. Battle Hammer blows wood shields to shit, Xavier pointed out. I'm more of a mace and flail girl myself, Julia, warrior princess, reminded us. That sounds so kinky, Julia, Xavier laughed. Try me, McMillan. I feel like my longsword is inadequate, I said. This conversation is arousing me, Hamid interjected. But seriously, let's do this. I can't stay too long anyway. I got dinner. Same, Julia admitted. I have to go to the hall in like 40 minutes. Hamid needs to check in, I said. You too, Nicole. What? Nicole pretended like she was oblivious, but within a second, all the players in the server were highlighted, ready to roll. I hovered my cursor over the Start Game button. Hamid bailed after 2 complete games, and so did Julia. I'd see Nasrallah tomorrow at school. I didn't hear from Julia Sunderland again for months, as it turned out. We can open the game up for the lobby fodder, I suggested. Nope, veto, Nicole was disgusted. Why not? Xavier pressed her. We'll get a game quicker. I don't play with randos, Nicole spat. Is that because you're a girl? Xavier teased. Are you cranky because it's your time of the month? You want to 1v1 me, McMillan? Nicole challenged. Yeah, maybe later when Fulbright isn't watching. I felt I had to say something to ease the situation. You guys think they had nerfed the explosive damage too much in 1.5? I asked. Yes, Nicole agreed with me. No, Xavier disagreed. I mean, they were right to nerf it. Shit was OP anyway. I like slicing people up with my power swords, Nicole admitted. It's like Necromunda. You would love that space opera shit, Xavier said. But this is a fantasy game. Science fiction and fantasy, reminded Nicole. Or can't you read? Listen, Xavier ignored her. Jono, just open up the game so we can play. This is ridiculous. I'm going to pull a Julia Sunderland and leave, warned Nicole. Hold on, I said, checking MSN again. It looked like the game was going to collapse, but Matt Pello's icon was showing up on the messenger window. What's happening? Nicole complained. I could be resting. We have practice tomorrow. Stop grinding me, coach, Xavier teased. Nicole was exasperated. What is Fulbright doing? Jerking off, I said, typing a message to Matt Pello on his MSN account. Matt and Will are coming, saved Xavier, possibly noticing the MSN feed or reading from the private chat. Yeah, I confirmed. Will said he'd play StarCraft later. Maybe he changed his mind. The TeamSpeak server clicked as Matt Pello's account, GR81, came online. What were you guys playing, Valhalla? Asked the voice of Elizabeth Pello, cutting in over a burst of microphone static. You're not Matt. He's practicing with Samantha and Taylor downstairs, Beth explained. Band musicians, you know. Nicole made a motorboat sound with her lips. Hey, Nicole, who's hosting? Beth asked. Fulbright. Oh, cool. You missed Julia Sunderland, Nicole added. Boo! How's she doing? New roommate, Catholic ass school, bored. Nicole summarized. What about Spicer? Xavier reminded me. What about him? Beth was confused. Is that McMillan? Not I, said McMillan. What are we doing, Jono? Nicole needled me. Hold your horses, I said, messaging Will, whose MSN icon was online but set to AFK. Hey, Beth, Xavier simply retargeted. Is it true that menstruation makes chicks crazy? Yes, Beth said, which is why we suppress it with birth control? Huh. I took out my phone and sent Will a text message. To my surprise, he texted right back. Will's coming, I reported. Fantastic, Xavier clapped or hit something. Guess he can play after all. The VoIP server blipped. Yo, Fulbright, it was Spicer. Will, fuck you, Xavier said predictably. Hockey was boring, Will snapped back. Herons are going to lose to fucking Columbus again. Can we start now? I could imagine how narrow Nicole's eyebrows were at this moment. Give me a second, I just got here, said Will. Me too, Will, Beth shouted. By the way, I said Matt's account is actually Beth. Oh yeah, Beth, you're hooked on Valhalla too? Will said. I like Valhalla, it reminds me of Quake, but crazier. You guys know it's a Zenith Systems game, right? Will asked. What's the deal with them anyway? Xavier followed up. I read a profile in PC Gamer like a year ago. Will, Nicole sounded like her soul was departing her body. Remember that time we beat the labyrinth at Rachel's house? Will laughed. Nicole didn't say anything, and of course I remembered. Yeah, man, I said. Grade 7, how could I forget? You remember who made that game? He asked. Is it a bowl of fruit or something? I guessed. Grapefruit Games. Will was warming up. And what about? I asked. Well, Grapefruit Games broke up in 1999, he explained, but they formed another company under one of their head programmers. And that company was? Zenith Systems? Will and an exhausted Nicole said simultaneously. Right, Xavier got into it. Valhalla was their first release, 2 years ago. Yeah, I said. I had the demo back in grade 10. You said you read the PC Gamer article, right, McMillan? Sure did, said Xavier. I didn't have a subscription, though. Well, they're working on another project. Rattlesnake, breathed Nicole. I've only heard rumors, said Will. It's going to be the best shooter ever made, Nicole cut in, if it doesn't turn into total vaporware. Okay, can we play now? I'm having cribbage flashbacks here, Spicer. Yeah, that's neat, Beth acknowledged. I actually learned something today. I learned Fulbright's cable host lags, and also he never starts the fucking game. Can we do StarCraft next? Will asked. Sure. What's the password? Yeah, what the heck, Jono? Said Beth. Penis, I said.